Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I'm your host, Diane Gibbs, and I am joined by my friend Ryan Hamrick. I used to stalk Ryan on Facebook and Instagram, and then I just asked him to be on the show. And I think this is like the third or fourth time you've been on, so I'm
Third, I
super
believe. Yep.
excited to have
Me
you
too.
back. And maybe one day we'll get to meet in person. As you're doing all
Yes.
this traveling, I think maybe one day. So if you're new, you can go ahead. There's this chat. You can actually make sure it says to all panelists and attendees, and you can actually talk to us. I will try and see if I get these questions answered. So if you have a question, and then I have some questions that I prepared too. So Ryan, just in case somebody doesn't know, and you are in the car right now, you are not driving. Your wife is driving. Your kids are in
Correct.
the back seat. You are on the Curves Ahead tour, right? But just in
Yep.
case somebody doesn't know who you are, and I will do a screen share while you tell this so that people can see some of your work.
Oh, cool.
And then that way people kind of get an idea of who you are. But tell us how you got into, because you didn't necessarily study design, how you got into lettering, a little bit of a background.
Sure. So my name is Ryan Hamrick, and I am currently based in Austin, Texas. I am in Denver right now, which we'll get to in a little bit, I'm sure. So yeah, I just about 6 years ago or so, I kind of decided out of nowhere to pursue a design career. And I had had a little bit of background playing around in Photoshop and designing bad logos for friends and family and stuff along the way. But it was really app design and doing some UI work and stuff that kind of got me in the door of design. And then it wasn't too long after that I discovered the amazing world of lettering and decided to try my hand at it. And the rest is kind of history. Just kind of taught myself and through a whole lot of trial and error, got to a point where I could make a little bit of money doing it. So yeah, here we are.
Which is terrific, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. But you really worked it. It wasn't like it was just like, oh, I'm going to do this. I mean, you really practiced. You were really passionate about it. And you were doing app design, so there was that connection, but there's so much that goes into that kind of side. So it was a lot of the same sort of thinking. And you were you had done sales, you had done a lot of other stuff. So selling for necessarily yourself wasn't sometimes as a designer, that's a really hard part. And so I
Sure.
think that it wasn't maybe as hard for you because you had already kind of understood how to do this and make a living selling somebody else's things, right?
Right. Yeah. I worked for 6 or 7 years in wireless retail management, managing salespeople and selling cell phones and stuff myself. And, a big part of sales is selling yourself, and selling the relationship and, gaining trust with the customer and all that. So, in a lot of ways that kind of translates pretty directly into selling yourself as a creative talent and selling your design work and your ideas and stuff like that. So yeah, that was a big part of probably why I was successful fairly early on in this stuff too.
So normally you're kind of you stay at or you were a stay-at-home dad and you were working, you're freelancing, you're working and so your kids, why don't you introduce them again? Jason said, why doesn't he introduce them again? So introduce everybody because you are not driving, your wife's driving and you're in Denver.
Correct. Yes, I've got my kids back here. I've got Lyric, she's 9 years old, and Benton, he's 12. And my wife, my beautiful wife, is driving here. And she doesn't
You know,
love driving in towns, so I'm gonna try and introduce her as few more times as possible here. But yeah, she's being an awesome trooper and holding down the wheel here while I talk to everybody.
so you
Yeah,
guys are doing something different this summer. This isn't something that you've done in the past. If you've gone on a trip, you've gone just like a regular 1 week vacation or something. So
right.
tell us about and I believe Brooke's actually she's working for herself also. This year she
Right.
went solo, right? She quit her full-time job. She was doing this on the side. So you
Mhm.
just have this family of hustlers, right?
Yeah, pretty much. For the last little over a year, we've been a fully self-employed household. She runs a clothing boutique out of our house, and she's a LuLaRoe retailer, which is a California-based clothing company that It's kind of like a direct sales company, and she has a huge inventory that has, you know, basically turned our front room of our house into a store. And, you know, people come by and shop, and she does a lot of online business as well. And we just figured this summer that since we both work for ourselves and can kind of work from anywhere in a lot of ways, why not work from everywhere? And we decided to, you know, keep the kids out of summer camps and stuff this year, and do this crazy tour around the country, and kind of make a little money, see a few sites, and, you know, kind of teach the kids about entrepreneurship and all that fun stuff, and you know, see some of the places that we've been dying to see, and meet some of the people we've been wanting to meet as well. So she's got customers all over the country, and I've got friends all over the country, a lot of whom I've yet to meet, and yourself included. So it's good to get around and meet some people. And I've been wanting to start teaching workshops for lettering for years now. So it was kind of a great excuse to just dive in head first and make it happen.
So you guys decided this when, like in January, like, cause like summer camps, you got to sign up for.
Right.
And you'll have to give me Brooke's link so that I can add that to your show notes, just in case. Cause I think Maria's like, yeah, they have awesome leggings. So
yes, they do. And people will go nuts over them. But yeah, hers is shopwithbrooke.com. Will take you to everywhere that's important for her. So
okay.
That was a simple one. But so when did we decide to do this? Well, so I had the idea probably at the end of last year to kind of create the idea of a workshop tour, and just kind of like send a bunch of emails out to local AIGAs and all that, and just see who is interested, and kind of make it a big thing, and just travel individually to each place, by flying to them, what have you. And then at some point in probably March or so, you know, it was coming time, like you said, to start thinking about getting everybody registered for summer camps and stuff like that. And Brooke actually had the idea, why don't we just not do that and make it a whole family thing? And then we could bring my inventory around, and we could, you know, make it a whole big deal with everybody, and do her things in each place and my things, and make it a big ordeal. And that was kind of it. And late April, I think, is when we finally announced it and made it official and committed ourselves to all this. So, yeah.
So on your website, Ryan Hamrick, HAMRICK.com, you could go and you could sign up. You're like, hey, host a workshop, right? Mm-hmm. What was the process, and how did you get the word out? I'm on your newsletter, so I got a newsletter. And then what else did you do? And this is way on down the road, or down in the questions, but I was just thinking about for other people who are doing or wanting to do something similar, maybe they do paper cutting or something else. And, you know, what else could they do marketing wise? How can they learn from you and what you did and what worked?
Well, originally what I did at first was reach out to local AIGA chapters in each town, and kind of try and gauge their interest and see if they would be interested in helping to promote / host, and help me find venues and stuff like that. And that got me pretty far along. It was, they do these kind of things a lot of the time anyway. So I figured they would be the best places to really connect to the local design community in each place, and kind of be a good jumping off point for that. And so those are the people I reached out directly. Some of the places, once I announced the whole tour and everything, reached out to me themselves. Like in Chicago, for instance, the Society of Typographic Arts has been coordinating and lining up everything, and promoting and everything, and they've done awesome. And that's actually currently the biggest attendee list so far. Some of them are kind of just getting started with promoting and stuff, and could end up being really good too. But Chicago has been huge for that reason, and she reached out to me on day one, saying that she would love to help plan and stuff. So yeah, a lot of word of mouth, and a lot of tapping into the design groups like AIGA and Creative Mornings and stuff to kind of use their networks to spread the word and get things going. So
Cool. All right. So I think I know the difference now, but you have workshops and pop-ups. Are pop-ups Brooks and workshops you?
yes, correct.
Okay.
And they're always on different days, so we can help each other out with those. And because it's a lot of work for each of them. The kids and Brooke have been awesome and kind of have setting up the workshops down to a science here, and they're really fast at that. And for the pop-ups, it's literally unloading a trailer with 1,500 pieces of clothing into someone's house in a span of about a half hour, and getting it all set up on racks and stuff for shopping. So it's a lot.
Yeah, it is. So right now you're not pulling a trailer, because I can see out the back of the car, right?
Sorry, you cut out.
You're not pulling a trailer right now, right? Oh, boogers. Are you pulling a trailer?
Apparently we're in a bad area. Not at the moment. We are detached from the trailer at the moment.
Okay, that's what I was saying. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, we get rid of it any chance we can, because it's definitely a whole new kind of nightmare to try and maneuver that. I had to parallel park it in downtown San Francisco for the San Francisco event, and that was no fun for sure. It was very stressful. And
I bet.
I'm totally new to driving with a trailer, and so is she, and it's been quite the learning experience. So I may actually have her hold this at me while I park the truck somewhere here, because it's kind of crazy in Denver too, actually, as it turns out, and we don't even have the trailer right now. So
it is.
And I have a big truck, so it's like it's not easy to park as it is, especially when you're not used to driving it. Like I have to back in everywhere pretty much. But yeah, so if I have to like shift you around a little bit, bear with me.
No problem. We'll be flexible, Ryan. I just feel like I'm in the car with y'all. So Will asked, is there a way to see more than the next 3 stops on the website? He was looking at curvesaheadtour.com. Or are there only 3 stops left?
No, there's a link at the top of the page in the navigation. If you're looking from mobile, then you may have to open up a hamburger menu or something. But there's a workshops page that has all the workshops listed there, and then the links to the ticket sites are through there. I'm ticketing through a site called Ticket Leap, and they've been really awesome. They pay out every week, which has been really good for me and getting funds ahead of time. That's great. Good to know. Yeah, for sure. Like Eventbrite, I think I couldn't figure out any way to really get any money before the events are over, which was kind of like a deal breaker for me, because we're leaving our house and kind of need to keep our bills paid and stuff while we're on the road and stuff. So getting that money regularly was a pretty important deal for us. But yeah, so that page, or if you just go to curvesaheadtour.com/workshops, that'll also go to the full list page. So
I think Maria shared it, but I just wanted to make sure people knew. Cool. I wanted to make sure, just in case somebody else isn't able to read the chat and they're just listening in, because I know Anne's driving as well, so she's just listening. So ticketleap.com is what you ended up using. Okay, good to know. So those are all awesome things. So it's not too late. So is tonight's Denver workshop closed, or could people still sign up today?
Yeah, not closed. As far as I'm concerned, if you want to sign up right into the thing, then I'm good with it. Their app has a fun thing where anybody that's currently registered will show up in there, and we can check in right from the app and stuff. So if you're in there before the event starts, then you can be checked in. So not too late.
So Brian asked are you adding any tour dates along the way? Because it's 40 days. You guys are gone 40 days. So you really had to kind of, unless it's on the way, are you adding any cities along the way?
We are not. So I've had quite a bit of outreach from places not on our schedule, places like Raleigh and Mobile, Alabama. Seattle even reached out to me literally the day after we took it off of the schedule, things like that. And so basically what I'm doing is to go out individually to those places and do the workshops, same ones that we're doing on this trip, because, like you said, we've scheduled this thing. We've kind of figured out the one way that it would work. And then, we just kind of have to pick the date for that place and just do whatever it takes to make it happen on that date at that time.
Right.
So, even if we're passing through cities that are super interested and want to do anything it takes to add it, we don't have the time because everything is based on the last one.
You have to get to the next city.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
We have zero wiggle room pretty much anywhere. The only one that could be flexible was Indianapolis, because we're staying in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where most of our family lives, for about a week in the middle of the trip for visiting family and kind of taking a little bit of a break in the middle there. And so I'm driving down to Indy by myself, well, with my mom actually, as it turns out, which will be fun. But that was kind of the only one that had a little wiggle room because we're kind of in one place for a little while. But other than that, everyone depends on leaving the last one at the right time, and very little room for error at all in travel. So
right.
No new dates, but I'm definitely scheduling things for later in the year for any other places that aren't on the schedule that want to help host something. Any AIGA members or chapters that are interested in places that we're not coming to necessarily now, you can definitely set those up for later too.
That's great, because Mobile is me and Jason Frostholm and Jen, who's here too. So a bunch of other people I think would love to have you in Mobile too. So
I'd love to come. So
what was required when you were scheduling? So you announced in April, and then you said on the website, hey, let us know if you want to host an event. When did you kind of set the tour schedule, and when was the day you cut Seattle out? Like, not that you didn't love Seattle, but you couldn't, you'd already cut them out.
Right. Yeah. Well, so we just, like I said, we kind of had to figure out the one way this could work around, other things happening at home, like kids going back to school and so on. So once we kind of figured out the most ideal schedule, we just had to make it happen. And we had all that figured out before we even announced anything. So we didn't have even a lot of the details figured out for individual locations. In fact, I'm still figuring out a lot of the details now. You rock. Let's have a round of applause for my amazing wife finding a parking spot in downtown Denver. I love you. Oh yeah, I'm the city driver for sure, and very stressful. But let me unplug here out of the car. We're gonna get out and walk around, so you get to see the sidewalks of Denver. I don't even know where we are at this point, but we're gonna check some fun stuff out here. Everybody got everything they need? We'll figure it out. Here's your purse here. All right, getting out of the car. So yeah, I think Seattle changed maybe 2 or 3 weeks after we officially announced everything. We were trying to figure out if we could maybe have it hosted at Amazon there. I've got a couple friends that worked there and still work there. And just it's tough when you're trying to coordinate something this huge with this many moving parts and in different places. I'm literally communicating an email with 20 plus people. What's that? Oh. Okay, thanks for the heads up.
Street sweeping today?
Something, I guess. I don't know. Okay.
So Bob said he has to go, but he says he'll see you in a few weeks, Ryan.
All right,
so
Bobby.
It was always good to see you, he said. All right, so you're 2 weeks in. What has been, and your kids are 12 and 9, so they're pretty self-sufficient. What's been one of the hardest things? Because this is 2 entrepreneurs, mom and dad, and then you're both doing your own thing. So, like, as a parent, what's been hard for the kids?
Well, we tried to build in some extra time for doing different sightseeing stuff and doing very, very local stuff. Like when we were in LA, we made a day to go down we went to Venice Beach. and spent the morning out there and had some really good food right off the beach there. And so that was really fun. San Francisco, we actually ended up not having a ton of time to do anything there because all the hotels were sold out, and the one that we found was like 300 plus a night. So,
Whoa.
yeah, we kind of rolled into town and rolled right out afterwards. But so I didn't get to spend as much time there as I would have liked and do fun stuff. But we did get down to like Pier 39 there and checked out some of that fun stuff. Had some good lunch down there and took some pictures. And of course, the Golden Gate Bridge was completely consumed by fog the entire time we were there and couldn't see it. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to do things like that locally to keep things interesting and keep it fun for them. They're awesome help at all our events, but at the same time, you know, those aren't necessarily inherently a lot of fun for a 9 and 12-year-old. So the first one in Phoenix, my daughter was super into it and was drawing and stuff the whole time. But you know, I think anybody at any age would get a little bored of seeing the same exact workshop happen over and over again. So understandably, that's a little bit boring of a portion of the trip. But you know, they've got their computers and iPads and stuff in the truck, and my son is super into rapping and making beats, so he's been making beats in the car on his little MIDI controller and stuff. And
Cool.
my daughter's been catching up on movies with the iPad, so
Maybe
they're doing that kind of fun stuff.
he can do some of the beats for the Curvecast because you got some nice music in that one.
Thank you. Yeah, I produced that stuff there, and I literally haven't taught him much of anything. It's really funny how your kids kind of just become you totally like out of your control. Like I was always really big into dancing, and I was a rapper for a long time before my family started, pretty much, and like producing that kind of music and stuff. So but I didn't like say, hey, you should get into this stuff, you should be a dancer, or you should, you know, you should rap, like it's in the family genes or anything like that. He just kind of did it on his own. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's funny how it works. But yeah, he's super into that stuff, so he's keeping busy with that. And you know, other than that, it's just a lot of you know, we kind of set out at the beginning of this trip and said, you know, so there's going to be a lot of hard work involved with this whole trip, and a lot of fun too. And we just kind of deal with one to get to the other, and use it as an opportunity to do some maturing and some learning and stuff, and have a fun but, you know, productive and learning filled summer. So it's been pretty well received so far, but again, we're 2 weeks into an almost 6-week trip, so right. Keep it going.
So how are you dealing with client projects? Are you still taking on client projects at this time? Are you setting aside time? Because I think that would be one of the hardest things to do,
right?
Especially because, you know, you're doing Brooke stuff, you're doing being dad, you're doing your workshops. How do you keep up with all that?
It's tough. I've kind of whittled down most of my client work for the most part on this trip. I do have one thing that came along right near the end of our planning and getting ready to leave phase, but it was something that I had to kind of sleep on a little bit and kind of think about whether I should take it on or not. Sorry, loud garbage truck. I had somebody reach out to me and ask me to do an original piece of art for a wedding proposal, or a marriage proposal, if you will. And so they're based in New York City, and I decided that it was enough of an honor to be asked to do something like that to just make it happen. So along this trip, I'm going to be producing this hand-painted piece of art for a marriage proposal that's happening sometime in August or September or something like that. And the plan is to get it done in time to deliver it in person in New York. So
nice.
I've got until August 5th essentially to get that one done. Otherwise, I don't really have a whole lot going on right now. I've kind of wound everything down pretty well before we left. And so if things come along, you know, I'll kind of gauge them as they come. But as it turns out, the less I'm promoting myself and work that I'm doing, the less inquiries come in. So if I'm not actively seeking work for anything, which or promoting work that I'm currently doing, then it kind of stays pretty light on the incoming trickle. So I'm just kind of focusing on sharing this whole workshop stuff and doing that, and making them the best they can be to keep the income going for now. And then when we get closer to home, I'll probably start ramping up efforts to try and get some work going before we get home, so I can kind of hit the ground running again. So
right. So with the workshops, are you providing the materials, or are they supposed to come with the materials so that they can draw?
Sorry, my son's in the street. Hey, get out of the street. Oh, it's sorry, I was looking for the street name. My wife had to go move the truck. It's Caithness. Caithness, if you want to spell it. Caithness and Zuni is where we are. I don't know. Kind of a residential / something. I don't know. So anyway, workshop materials. So with lettering, I'm a big proponent and always have been that the tools don't make the letterer, if you will. And all you really need is a pencil and paper. So I have brought along several reams of printer paper, which is what I use about 95% of the time, and a couple pads of marker paper, which is what I use in place of tracing paper. Tip I learned from my pal Ken Barber a few years back. It's thin enough to see through, enough to do your iterations and redraw things, but thick enough to be a little more substantial, have a little bit of tooth, and not roll up on you the moment any moisture touches it. So I've got those things and pencils, and I've brought along some brush pens and stuff to play with. But other than that, that's it. I mean, I'm showing a few things on the computer too, but and people are welcome to bring in any favorite tools that they may have, or their computer if they want to follow along with the vector stuff. But other than that, that's all it is. So it's very very low investment and pretty low maintenance for anybody that's been hosting and stuff. We kind of have everything and set everything up ourselves, and my little family of 4 here can knock out a 40-person workshop, as we proved in San Francisco, and about a total of an hour on the front and back of setup and teardown. So we're getting pretty good at this.
How long are the workshops?
So the way these are set up, I kind of set them up in 2 tiers, or 2 sessions, I guess, rather 2 tiers of ticket level. But so 2 sessions. I wanted to kind of strike a balance between ticket price and I had a dollar amount in mind that I wanted to make sure that I met in each place, and getting there required kind of a very specific balance of how many people could come and how much the ticket prices were, because a lot of these have to happen on weeknights. So you're dealing with a window between a typical workday and being too late to have people out. So that time frame for weeknight workshops has been about 6 to 10, which 10 o'clock is of course pushing it for some people. So that's as late as we wanted to go. But because it's only that 4-hour window, here she comes down the street. Good.
Walking or driving?
Walking.
Okay.
Luckily, apparently she found a spot, so less stressful with us in the car, I'm guessing. Hey guys, hey, come down here. Let's go find. Mom's walking down the street on the other side of the road. So we wanted to make the most of that 4 hours, because it's not a very long workshop, and I had to get to a certain dollar amount with the ticket sales to make each stop make sense. So in order to do that with a limited time, I wanted to make it available for more people.
So like
still give everybody
beginners
the right value
and advanced. So you have you could do the whole 4 hour and that's one price, or you could do session 1 or session 2.
Kind of, yes. It's so it's like a general session for the first 2 hours, which is $60. And then you can buy a ticket for both for $80, which is the full 4 hours. You all right? Find a spot? Okay, good. And so, but what happens is a total of 50 people can come to the for the general session for the $60. So I figured a full 2 hour combination of lecture and workshop. We do quite a bit of sketching in there and stuff, even though it's a little bit more general and a big group. So I kept that value a little bit, or that cost a little bit lower for those people, and it's a larger group, so there's a little less time for one-on-one time, but we can cover a lot more, get a lot more people in, and sell a lot more tickets. And then for the extended part, the capital session, as it's called, the only 20 people can get access to those. So there's 20 of those tickets available, and people can stay for the whole thing. And then that gives us another hour and a half or so once everybody gets filed out from the first session to kind of dig a little deeper on a few topics, show some advanced techniques, and get a little more access for one-on-one time and direct feedback and stuff on their stuff. So so that's kind of the way I've set it up. And altogether, if those sell out, then that's an excellent dollar amount for me for these. And if they don't do as well in certain areas, like in LA, we ended up with 5 people. It was a more intimate, pretty fun event. But it's still
great value for the people coming, because it's really not that expensive, and you're getting, and that it's still a small group. It's not like it's 300 people, and it's you can't really get
right,
because you could still talk to the people next to you if you can't necessarily get one-on-one time with you.
Yeah, so, and we've had plenty of time for questions and stuff, and it's been good.
So what have you learned about doing in-person workshops? Is there anything so I know one thing you bought was a specific camera that actually shows your hand, because I think with a workshop, that was something, it must have been something you knew you were going to have to do, and then you played with it a lot. And that was, I think it was an Instagram post or something.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because that was something you did prep work to get, because you knew you would need it. Especially for 60 people, you need to show what your hand's doing, and they can't all get around the table.
Yeah, I learned that trick from Ken Barber as well. I was attending a workshop of his that he did it in Pittsburgh when I lived there, and he had just a tripod and a camera, I think, set up with a webcam or something. It was pointed down so you could see what he was drawing. So for a larger group, he could kind of switch back and forth between a keynote presentation and this camera, so you could actually see the sketching and stuff. And I really enjoyed that process and that setup. So I knew that I wanted to kind of recreate that a little bit as well. And every lettering artist has to have a good setup for videoing or video recording their lettering for process videos and stuff. And this is going to be an excellent camera for that kind of stuff too. So I found this pretty inexpensive camera on Amazon. It's $100, and it plugs right into your computer with USB, and it has awesome software actually that's available right on the App Store, on the Mac App Store. Available on Windows too, I'm pretty sure. But you can do all kinds of stuff, from screencasting to split screening between like a still image and a recording, and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's been great for these workshops and showing what I'm doing on paper when nobody can, or when not everybody can circle around me and actually watch. Obviously, if there's 40 plus people in there, it gets a little crowded.
And so it's inexpensive, but it's also pretty easy to set up too, right?
Oh yeah, so easy. You plug it in, you launch the app, and you're good to go. And then all you got to do is connect your computer to a projector or whatever, and you're set. It's really easy.
So Anna wants to know, she's the one in Ithaca, what kind of venues are the workshops typically in? And that's really done by the partner AIGA or Creative Mornings or whatever, right? They are going to set up that. You're not having to pay a fee for the venues, are you?
So in most cases, I'm getting help from the local groups that are helping me. In LA, for instance, it just turned out that we couldn't get anything going with any of the groups. A lot of the AIGA chapters take the summer off completely, pretty much. So some of them were a little bit more willing to work with me anyway and helping. Others were just like, they do tons and tons of events all year long, and they just need a break. So it just kind of depends on the place. But like in LA, for instance, we ended up holding it in little joint art studio that one of my friends out there, Matt Gondek, he used to work in the studio alongside a couple other artists. And nice little space, small, but it was perfect for what we needed. And when I couldn't find anything else really to accommodate the big group, and didn't have a ton of help promoting there, we just ended up going with that space, and it was perfect for the smaller group that we ended up having. Really intimate, had a big high table that we could all kind of crowd around, and it ended up being perfect. I didn't even project anything. I just sat there and talked to them, which was pretty cool too. So
that's nice.
But yeah, in most places we're getting donated space from either design groups or companies in the area. We're being hosted by Cotton Bureau in their awesome new warehouse space in Pittsburgh. And let's see, well, in San Francisco, we were at a Google office right downtown there, which is really cool. And
where are you tonight?
Yeah, it just depends. Tonight we are at General Assembly in Denver.
Okay.
So we've got a nice little space there, and I think they're going to talk a little bit for the workshop about General Assembly and stuff, because they don't usually do events that aren't theirs, I guess. But so that's going to be a good spot, and yeah, a bunch of fun places. Sorry, I'm winded now. We're walking around.
I know. It's Jason Frost told me, he said, how's that altitude treating you? Because it is. It really is different from Austin to go a mile high, 5280.
Sure.
And the constant talking doesn't really help too, as you're trying to keep up with your kids and your wife, right?
Not my typical environment for sure.
Right. What was the name of that camera so I can put it in a link?
Oh, sure. I think it's called IPEVO. I don't even know if I pronounced that right. IPEVO. And
okay.
It's like a Zig digital presenter camera or something like that.
Okay. I'll look it up. I'll find it and I'll put it in the show links. So really you were marketing to designers or people who are in our industry already that are interested probably in lettering, because with Creative Mornings or AIGA or other kind of art related, did you think at all about doing, because it does seem like a lot of other people are just like normal people that aren't us are just getting into this lettering thing now, and so they're just like finding out. Did you think about reaching out to that, or is that maybe something you want to do in the future, because this was kind of already a proven people?
Well, it depends on the location a lot, because for instance with the Google one, I had just kind of finished up a project with that team, and just kind of in passing, I said, hey, I'm doing a workshop in San Francisco on such and such a date. Do you guys have space there? Would you be interested in hosting it all? And the person that I had been working with on that project was just like, that sounds amazing. Let me check into it a little bit. And it took about 2 weeks or so. But she came back. She was like, yeah, we're approved to use the space or whatever. And so I gave them a discount code on tickets for hosting for any of their employees and stuff. And that workshop actually ended up being mostly Google employees, from YouTube to I don't know what all teams are in the San Francisco area, but obviously their main campus is in Mountain View, just a little bit south of there. Mm-hmm. And so she distributed that discount code around and a link to the whole concept and everything, and it kind of blew up from there. And I think we had like 7 non-Google employees that came to that workshop. Wow. And the rest of like the almost 40 were all Google people from one team or another. So so in that case, it was a lot of people that probably are just generally design curious or whatever, and picking up new skills, and in other places it's a little bit more focused on stuff. Like in LA, I think we had a couple of actual lettering artists that were there, and I don't know, let's see, in New York so far we still don't even have a location for New York, so if anybody's in New York and wants to host us there. We got a couple leads that I'm working on, but if I don't work on like 3 or 4 different things at the same time, then nothing will happen. So, but we already have about, I think 9 or 10 tickets sold for there, even without a location. And 6 of them are all from Penguin Random House design team. So, probably designing book covers there and stuff, and could really use some of these extra lettering chops and stuff. So that's cool. And then those people are probably all, working in this kind of field a lot anyway. And will be, excited to learn maybe a few new tricks or whatever. And I don't know, I kind of even lost the track of the question, but I mean,
No.
it's all types. And I've been reaching out to local colleges and stuff and just kind of blasting the info out there to anybody I can come across that has anything to do with design in any way, and seeing who's interested. So you never know who's interested in lettering. It's really as a strong draw, no matter who you are, I think.
So 2 things. Krister says drink some water. That'll help.
Yeah.
You want to stay hydrated for sure. You can bring him some water tonight, Krister. But but the other thing is you also, I know this was on your podcast. So the podcast is pretty new. When did you start it? And then you did a workshop with your with lyrics class. I think she's in 3rd grade maybe, or now she'll be in 4th grade. So Correct. Are you doing anything like that? Because that seemed to be it was a big hit. I thought that there's like a cricket sound and you're like, oh, I guess you guys have a cricket. I thought that was hilarious. And then the cricket comes back later. Like you can really hear the cricket in another part of the thing, but you really kind of get a sense of, that regular people don't understand what we do. And we hear that all the time. They just don't get that. But as kids, they were really excited. And me and you have talked about this before, about that you're so passionate about. So many people are not teaching cursive writing anymore, right?
Right. Yeah.
So are you doing anything like that on this tour, or what? Well, I guess there's no schools in session, but is that something like once you're back home, is that something you would travel and do as well?
I would love to. That was a really fun experience. Like you said, it was cool to see how engaged they were in that. I mean, I went there for like a career day thing as well. I don't know if I talked about that on that episode or not.
Mm-hmm.
But, a few months before that, I was there for a career day thing, and it was there's a lot of doctors and stuff that have kids that go there and things like that, and that's all interesting to like us for sure, probably, but to the kids maybe not so much. And for me to come in there and share that I get to draw every day and make money doing that and work for cool companies that they're all familiar with and stuff. I mean, that was it seemed to be very, very interesting.
One kid was like, "You make money doing that?" Like they were shocked. It was such a great. I was glad you had some of that like recorded, because that was such a an interesting kind of perspective. So, but that would be something that if people wanted you to come and because you were making it practical. And you also talked about how you didn't like cursive when you were in the 3rd grade.
Right.
And but they actually kept doing, this was the last 2 weeks of school, so they didn't have a lot of new material they were covering. Right. So this was kind of like perfect for you to be able to come in and do something. So after testing or standardized testing, things like that, that would be a great time for you to come in. And after you left, you said on the podcast, you said it was that the kids kept, they looked at your website some more, and then they kept just drawing. And so it was that's huge, that such an impact on a whole generation that maybe won't be taught. And you even talked about, it would be really sad if they didn't know how to read what you were writing at some point, exactly. Right?
I think, aside from the fact that it's a ton of fun to do this stuff and that you can be so much more expressive with script writing and stuff, and just knowing how to do that as a skill is a great creative outlet for a lot of people. Obviously for myself and people that do it for a living, it's a very fun and rewarding thing to do. But I mean, aside from that, even just not having people who know how to read it anymore is not good. It's not good for business, for people like me, and it's no fun. I mean, if everything is different variations of, regular non-script fonts everywhere, then, what kind of world is that? So if people can't read it, then the demand for that kind of work and that kind of beautiful opportunity for real art and regular everyday things like signage and whatever, it's gone. It's like, it loses all its value. So keeping that alive is definitely something that's very important to me, and doing things like that, I feel like are a great way to kind of keep the spirit of that alive, and the interest is definitely there. People who are a little bit older than them, and maybe younger than us, for instance, who kind of grew up on technology and see this kind of stuff as a little bit outdated, or don't see the use in it, or what have you. It's understandable. If you come from learning this kind of stuff and then you're introduced with all of the ways that technology can make things so much more easier and convenient, then it's easy to understand why people will see this as like something that's doesn't really have a ton of value anymore, or doesn't make sense to teach alongside typing skills and whatever. But for these kids who have only known the digital side of things, in a lot of cases, probably this kind of stuff seems a lot more fun and free, and a big opportunity to do something a little bit more creative than just typing in distorted English and whatever. Like, that stuff is all they know, so it's less interesting to them than people who see it as an easier way to communicate than doing the more analog stuff. So it's kind of like a thing where it seems like it might be a little cyclical, and we're coming back around to a time when people are kind of bored with all of the advances in communication and want to get down to something a little bit more hands-on. So yeah.
But even in the digital realm, I'm going to share your Procreate brushes. You have these Procreate brushes, so everybody can see the screen now. So you've made these, and they can actually purchase this. They can actually get one for free if they tweet, and I'm going to put that in the chat when I get it back up. But it's ryanhamrick.com/lettering-brushes, or dash if you're super young and you don't know what a hyphen is. But so it kind of, I'm going to kind of go through these. I don't know if you can see them. Can you see them?
I can see them. Yeah.
Okay, great. So you've created these 14 different brushes, and it's $15. So it's really easy for people to go, but then they're able to use technology. This is my favorite, the folded pen. Is that it? Folded. I love that one too, gel pen. It's just that it has such a range, and then I think watching some of your videos, you can actually tell how to kind of get how to use some of these. But again, it's bringing that technology, but then there's so much hand skill that goes into this that I think is incredible. So we're getting some questions, so I want to make sure that we get the questions. So do you want to tell them about the Procreate at all?
Yeah, sure. So I got an iPad Pro as soon as they came out a year and a half or so ago, whenever it was, almost 2 years ago now. And I figured I had an iPad Air for a little while, and it was kind of about time for an upgrade possibly, and it was doing fine, but I could see myself getting an upgrade, and that was when they announced the iPad Pro. And I figured if anybody can really nail the tablet and stylus thing, it's probably going to be Apple. So I would love to try this thing out. If it's great, fantastic. If it's not as great and not much better than the Cintiqs or anything that I'm used to and have used before, then at the very least, I've got a killer iPad. So, what's the harm? So I invested in that, and I got it. And I'd say it took me about 2 weeks of really playing with it to really get the feel for it and to get used to drawing on the slick screen and stuff, and figure out the pressure and all of that. But once I did, it was just a total game changer for me. Just being able to have an undo button when sketching and kind of trying to get a bunch of ideas out quickly was just so huge for me. And I was just using a lot of the basic brushes and stuff that came with Procreate, which is an excellent app for iPad, of any kind of iPad. iPad Pro, you get a lot more functionality with the pencil and stuff, but I was using that before on other iPads too, with other styluses, or styli rather, and it's good with those too. And there's a lot that can be done just with your finger, even with that app. So highly recommend that in general. But the amount of depth you can go into with brush creation in there is seriously a rival to like Photoshop brush creation. So
wow,
while it's handled a little bit differently, it works a lot of the same ways, and you can really just get something super fine-tuned and very specific. And so I knew from the get-go there that creating some lettering specific brushes would be something that would be valuable, and something that I would get a lot of use out of, just creating them for myself. But then it's something that I could earn a little passive income from probably at some point. And it took me about a year and a half to finally get around to actually like tweaking them all just the way I wanted them and getting them ready for some kind of packaging for sale. And but I finally made it a point this summer to actually get that done and get them out there, or this spring actually, I guess it was. It's been a little while now, but yeah, I tried to go in and recreate basically all of the favorite tools of mine that I use in analog, and kind of recreate them in Procreate so that I could use them on the iPad when I'm, getting sketches out. Where something I would maybe grab a brush pen for to get an idea out, or to try something to get a look that I was looking for that I had in my head, I could do that on the iPad now, and that was great. And so I got them kind of all tweaked just the way that I wanted them, and got them about as ready as I could come up with to put those out there, and then finally did. So they're out there.
Is creating brushes similar to creating brushes like in Photoshop, where you actually started with something analog and you scanned it in, you got the texture, or is it completely all made from just Procreate?
So there's a couple different ways that I did those. The first few that I created were kind of just highly tweaked and tuned versions of some of the ones that they had in there to begin with. Like one of my favorite ones that I just called Hamrick ink, because I couldn't put my finger on one specific thing that it was close to in analog. So that's just named after me. That's what it is.
I was trying to get there really, because it was there. This one.
Yeah, that's the solid version, and then there's one with a little more texture that I use like most of the time. Yeah, there it is. And so that one is basically just a really tweaked version of one of their other brushes. I don't even know which one it is now, but just through tweaking the way that it responds to pressure and the range that it responds to it, like what's the smallest size it can go to, what's the largest size it can go to, how much texture is there, how much jitter in your stroke is there from your actual drawn path, things like that. And different combinations of tweaking those things got me to a point where I had this brush that was super versatile and great to use for like quickly roughing out, thick and thins and stuff on a script. And then from there, you can use that same brush and just use it a little bit lighter on the touch, and it's a lot cleaner of a stroke. So you can clean up the edges with the same tool and stuff. So that one's super versatile, and it's all based on one that was in there from the beginning. It's just, fine-tuned to a very specific set of use cases that works for me and my general process. And then some of the other ones, it is similar to Photoshop in that you have like a grain source and a shape source. So those work together to form the actual way that the brush works. So some of those are grains and shapes that are found in the app themselves that you can choose from. And some of them I totally designed from scratch. The folded pen one that you mentioned that you liked a lot is one of my favorites too. And it was actually like one that I put together kind of randomly at the very end of my process of trying to get it ready for sale. I was working with a different one, trying to get a certain effect, because I wanted to kind of flesh out my set with a few more styles of brushes. And then I tweaked one of my other brushes in such a way that was giving me an effect that I really liked. And I thought to myself, this could be really cool and very similar to the way a folded pen works with calligraphy. If I kind of did my own texture for this thing and created a specific shape that would kind of leave these streaks in it at certain pressures. So the faster you move, the thinner it is, just like with a folded pen. Like if you really scrape it across the screen, it leaves a lot more transparency in there and a lot more texture. And if you go a little slower, it fills it in a little bit more. And so it works very much like a folded pen does with ink. So that one was kind of like one of those happy accidents, where I kind of got almost there accidentally. And then I thought, if I do this specific shape and, create it in Photoshop and import it into there and use that as my shape, then maybe I can get this certain effect. And after a few tweaks, there it was. So yeah, it's fun.
Jay Wilson says she has all your brushes, or he has all your brushes. I don't know. It's just a letter. Jay Wilson. Okay. Love to know where you're from. And they use it often, and they say nice job. Krister says, thanks. To what degree has the iPad Pro and Procreate replaced your analog workflow?
It depends on the project and the ultimate look I'm going for. I pretty much always still finish in Illustrator on the computer. For vector-based artwork, there's not been any substitution for me so far on that stuff than my mouse and Illustrator. I don't draw in vector on tablet of any kind or anything like that. I haven't come across any apps on the iPad that do what I want enough to replace any of that part of my workflow. Where the iPads come in a lot for me is in the early stages, especially, and getting a lot of ideas out fast and getting that ideation process going and iterating quickly and stuff like that. Saves me a ton of time on that. Sometimes, if I'm going for something that needs a little bit more of a hand-drawn feel on the end, sometimes I'll utilize a lot of those textures that I built into my brushes and stuff, and just get something really clean on the iPad. And if it's possible, I'll just do it big enough to use it as final artwork in a couple cases, and just leave it as is and not do a vector version if it's feasible for the project needs. Otherwise, I'll get it to a certain point and then I'll bring it into Illustrator like I would a normal sketch. I still like to get on paper a lot too, because there's some things that a pencil can give you that, just don't seem to come as naturally with the digital stuff. As fine as you tune those brushes and as on point as everything is there and as fast as it is for iterating, there's certain things I just still can't do with anything but a pencil. So it hasn't completely replaced it, but it has totally changed my workflow for the better on speed, especially if I got a tight deadline. It's been awesome.
So before I let you go, because we have like 2 minutes, I want to show one other image if I can get it loaded up. It's from so you'll probably be like, Diane, you're so weird that you are, but to me, this is one of those things. Let me share this. So this is some of the stuff that I love. This is just you have pieces. This is the City of the Violet Crown. Violet
Yeah.
Crown. And it's the way you've just drawn these lines. And I don't know if you're using a ruler, but they are so straight and they're just beautiful. And I think that just that filling in, and it's probably just to give you kind of the feel of how this is going to look as it is solid, but it's so beautiful. And I'm so glad you post process shots. I just think sometimes those are just amazing. You have another one, the Valley of the Sun. I think that this one, and I think there's another one where it's the final one, all colored in.
Oh, yeah.
I think stuff like that is really interesting, and I'm so glad that you're showing us stuff like this and the background swooshes that you're putting in, because it is a way to think. But I also think the reason your brushes are so great is because you know how to use the tools also in person,
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's like I said, it's the direct inspiration for a lot of the brushes. And I had certain analog tools in mind when I created every one of them. Well, almost every one of them. There's a few that are just totally iPad centric and weren't really from anything, but just kind of ones that I made and liked. But a lot of them, yeah, they're to recreate there's one that's called Washable, that's to recreate a Crayola washable, because that's one of my favorite analog lettering tools, as it turns out, is Crayolas. And those are kind of catching on as a pretty popular thing, across the industry. But, I wanted to make one that was similar to that because I love the way that it lays down the color. And it's got a fade usually from where the point of the tip is to the base of it. And I wanted to kind of recreate all that. And, knowing how to use those and in certain ways, very much informed the way I did those brushes. And I wanted to be able to do some of the same things that I do on paper on the iPad if I'm traveling, or if I just want to do something that I would normally do on paper, but iterate through ideas quicker with it. And a lot of those brushes are a direct result of trying to accomplish that. So if I didn't know how to use those or what those looked like when used a certain way, then I wouldn't be able to come up with those particular things. So.
Right. So Lara has a comment. She said, your brushes are her favorite, especially the felt pen. Any plans to create more? Is there a way I can make a couple of others respond the way that one does? A darker, more solid brush. So there's definitely wants and needs out there for brushes. And you said you are also interested in maybe doing some Photoshop brushes as well. And Jason Carnes here. He's way late, he says, but hey.
What's up, buddy? Yeah, so I definitely have interest in making more in the future, for sure. these are the ones that, well, let's see. I have 14 brushes in a set. I'd say probably 7 or 8 of them were ones that I had created for a long time now and been using for myself, and just finally got around to putting them up for sale. But then the rest of them were created to kind of flesh out a respectable amount for a brush set to sell. And were kind of like newer creations. So some of them have already given me ideas for different kinds of things that I could make in the future. I just kind of was at a point where I wanted to get it out there.
Right.
So there are a couple like in the chamber, if you will, of ones that I could have done, you know, in the next couple months here once I stop traveling and being a little crazy here and stuff like that. But definitely we'll have some more coming at some point. But like I said, a lot of these were based on ones that I created like for specific uses and things like that. So just a matter of like probably coming across the need to create a new one for something else, to have another collection to make available for sale. I'm not really interested in being in the business of making brushes for a substantial part of my income. So like I said, it'll kind of just probably stem from needs that arise, you know. So I'm sure they will, and I'm sure that I'll create them, and if I do, then I'll sell them. But yeah, so they'll be there, and if you're following me, you know, around the internet, then, you know, I'm sure you'll hear about it when I do. But as of right now, I don't have anything like planned or, you know, on the verge of being available or anything like that. These are the best that I have at the moment, and you know, just a nice way to kind of put out there what I'm using. So.
All right, so last question. Want to know where people can find you, but also tell them, how long have you been doing the podcast? Because they can also catch your podcast. It's Curvecast with Ryan Hamrick, and you can get it on iTunes or wherever you do, Google Play or whatever. And so how long have you been doing that, and what's kind of the goal or plan with that one?
Yeah, I've wanted to do a podcast for a long time. I've been listening to podcasts for a pretty short while, actually, just for the last 2 or 3 years, maybe. I think since I've been in Austin, actually, is like when I first started actually getting into them. So not very long. But ever since then, I've wanted to do something myself. Just super fascinating. Obviously, you know, you've been doing a show for years now, and it's a ton of fun. And I don't know, it took me a while to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, because I didn't want to do just a typical interview podcast necessarily, where I just ask lettering artists the same questions that they've been asked a million times. You know, it's kind of hard to come up with unique and interesting things to talk about with people necessarily if you're just doing an interview about them. So what I decided to do is kind of make it just more like some of the news and politics podcasts that I've been completely consumed with for the last half a year or more, last year, where, you know, a current event happens or something is hot right now in our industry or whatever. And I think of somebody that I want to talk to about that thing, and then have them on there, whether that be a project that they specifically are working on, or something that's going on in the industry, and I have somebody in mind that I think would have a very interesting take on that. I want to talk to them about it. I've only been doing it, there's only 4 episodes out right now, and the 4th one is a very short one, giving an update on this tour from before we started it. And I brought along some mobile recording stuff that I invested in right before we left, to kind of do some recording on the road for some things, including some insight and experiences from the kids even, while we're on this trip. And, you know, I've yet to post anything since we've been traveling, but we're kind of still getting our bearings a little bit.
Right.
And we'll have some time, like in Indiana, for instance, where we'll be stationary for a little while, and maybe we can do a little bit more of that, and I can have a little more time to actually put something together. One of the things that I've taken the most care with this is the production value of it. I don't have a lot of experience with that or anything, but I do know what I like from other podcasts, and have a certain level of taste in podcasts that I've developed over the last year or so of really getting into them. So I've been spending a lot of time on each one. That's why I didn't want to
It sounds awesome. It's really good quality. Okay. The music, it's nothing that I do because I don't have time, but I really appreciate it. Also, it really sets a tone, and it has a really good feel. So definitely you guys should check out Curvecast with Ryan Hamrick. And they can also follow you on Twitter and Instagram at Hamrick, Hamrick. And then they can always check out your website, couple websites, ryanhamrick.com and Curves Ahead, CurvesAhead tour.com. And then they can also, with Brooke, they can do Shop with Brooke, Brooke with an E on the end?
Yes, ma'am.
Brooke.com. Okay, great. So is there any other way that people could get in touch with you or follow you, other platforms where you're pretty active?
Sure. Well, the whole foundation of this whole tour and the workshop series and stuff especially has been Handling the Curve, which has been started as a Medium publication a few years ago.
Right.
I just kind of created it to have a place to write about design and life as it pertains to them, I think is the tagline of it. But I kind of always had in mind a little bit more for it, including motorcycles, including the podcast that I eventually wanted to do as a part of that, and including online resource sites and stuff like that. And this workshop series is a part of that umbrella as well. This is the Handling the Curve workshop series as part of this tour that includes my wife too. So handlingthecurve.com will actually currently still take you to the Medium publication, which has a lot of old articles that I've written about design and lettering in particular in a few cases and things like that. But sooner than later, that's going to house a lot more, including probably like a annual, very inexpensive membership site for lettering resources and stuff.
Cool.
All in all, the main goal of all this is to make learning how to letter a little bit easier and more accessible to more people. Because when I started out, there was very little out there unless you had the ability to travel to some places like San Francisco, New York, what have you, and take these legit courses that people who are doing this professionally were teaching. And me having a family and kids at the time and not being in one of those places made it a lot harder just from the get-go to figure this stuff out for myself. So the whole idea is to make that a little bit easier and have a place where people can learn a little bit better. So handlingthecurve.com, one to bookmark for the future, if nothing else.
Definitely. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for giving our first on-the-go transmission, I guess.
Yeah.
No, it's been great. And thank you guys, everybody who's come. I know, just so you know, Jay Wilson is Jana, and she's in Northwest Arkansas.
Sure. I know about Jana. Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure because she had told us later or earlier, whatever. Anyway, so sure. Ryan, thanks so much again just for doing it. I appreciate you doing the middle of this tour. I can't wait to hear about how the tour goes because I think you would like to maybe do something if it goes well and your kids are still talking to you at the end. I think maybe you and Brooke would like to do this again in the summers in the future.
It's possible, for sure. It'll either go really well and we'll do it every year, or we'll never do it again, probably. So we'll see.
Well, thank you again. Remember to follow Ryan. Go to Ryan's all the websites. So handlingthecurve.com, curvesaheadtour.com, and you still have plenty of other. So curvesaheadtour.com/workshops with an S at the end, and they can sign up for a workshop in New York or Pittsburgh, or I think you're even going to do another one in Austin once you get home, right?
Yes, that one hasn't been planned necessarily, but the loose idea is to kind of bookend the tour with Austin workshops and a lot more in Austin moving forward too. Now that I've kind of broken the seal and started doing workshops now, it's going to be a regular thing for sure, especially at home. So
that's great.
Yeah, so we've got tickets still available for Denver tonight, even in a couple hours. Then we go to St. Louis, Chicago, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, New York City, Washington, D.C., and Atlanta, all still available. And with the exception of New York, all have locations and are ready to go. So, check them out.
The dates
if you're in one of those places are close. Yeah.
The dates are all, you can go to ryanhamrick.com and click on workshops as well and see all the dates for all the different cities that he mentioned. So get your tickets, very affordable. You can do the double one, or you can do just the single. The double one is limited space, right? If you're doing the full 4 hours.
People.
Right. So I can't wait to hear how it goes, Ryan. Thanks again so much. And just so you guys know, if you want to, if you're new to Design Recharge, it's every week on the 5th. Sometime in a 5-week month, I try to do something called a rapid recharge, which that's going to be next week. I think there might have been 2 rapid recharges this month because I was launching something as well, the Recruiting Creatives. So if you haven't heard about that, 2 podcasts ago, or 3 maybe, I can't remember. I think it was 3 podcasts ago. This is episode 220. It was they're eating and you're like dying of thirst and everything. So thank you. I appreciate it. Just you can always email me at diane@rechargingyou.com if you want more information. And hopefully I'll see you guys next week. It is a rapid recharge. I'm prepping for WMC Fest, which I'm a Q&A MC, and I get to give a talk too. So I'm real excited about that. So hopefully I'll see you guys in Cleveland. You can get your tickets too for that. That's August. I think you'll be back home, Ryan, August 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, something like that.
I'll probably be heading to Boston for TypeCon, which I'll be teaching an iPad lettering workshop at if anybody's going to be there.
Cool.
Those tickets are available on TypeCon's website too. So.
Awesome. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes as well. So we'll see everybody next week. Ryan, have a great time. I love Denver. I miss Denver. So tell all my Denver friends hello. And Krister, I'm glad you won and you get to go tonight. So thanks for coming today. And Ryan, just thanks again. I'm so glad. I can't wait to meet you in person someday. But thank you for taking me with your family on the trip.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a good time.
It is, Ryan. Have a good lunch.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.